Okay. Could all take a seat? Like to get started here in a second. Welcome everybody to the City of Placerville City Council regular meeting, June 13th, 2017. If you would all rise, and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you like to call the roll, please?
Councilmember Acuna?
Here.
Councilmember Borelli?
Here.
Mayor Clarici?
Here.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Here.
All righty. Let's see, announcements. The announcement of Community Cleanup Day. Very exciting. Saturday, June 17th. That's this coming Saturday. 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Placerville Station, Mosquito Road Park and Ride. So there where the old train depot used to be, and now we have a lovely park and ride and a large lot, which we will be paving here in the not too distant future. We will. You'll be able to bring your. Let's see. Eldorado Disposal is providing free bins for depositing trash, must be bagged, general recycling, yard waste, metal objects, and appliances. No items with Freon, please. Snowline Hospitals will be on site to accept tax-deductible donations of gently used items and electronic waste. What you cannot bring is things like oil and that sort of stuff I already asked. I probably includes batteries and things like that. But your standard trash and then recyclables and also any household items that you'd like to donate. That's this coming Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. At the Park and Ride on Mosquito Road. Brief comments by the City Council. Anybody?
Sure.
Start over there.
I just want to thank our staff for putting on this Community Cleanup Day as well as Eldorado Disposal. What an amazing, gift to our community twice a year to give folks the ability to clean out their closets and their garage and dispose of their trash and donate their gently used items. And I mean, that's just an amazing thing in our community. So that's awesome. I also want to thank our public works crews and maintenance staff. They do a heck of a job, and I don't think they get enough credit for the really difficult things they sometimes have to deal with. And I just want to thank them for their efforts, and it is very much appreciated, as they are often the unsung heroes in our community, keeping it clean and safe for all of us, and we really appreciate that. So.
Very good, thank you. Anyone else wish to say anything? Over there? Okay.
I agree with everything.
Well said, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy.
Well, thank you for that comprehensive. Thank you. All right. Do we have a closed session report?
Tonight in closed session, the council did not take reportable action.
Thank you very much. Would we like to adopt the agenda?
I move for adoption.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Ceremonial matters. We have two items. One is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring July 2017 the 25th anniversary of the Gold Country Artist Gallery. Gold Country Artist Gallery is the one down there on Main Street, very close to the bell tower. They've been there for 25 years. Lovely art and kind of the very first of the many now. We have several art galleries on Main Street, very nice. And they've kind of the oldest, I think. So it's very good.
Got a lot of great stuff in there.
Yes. Oh, okay. And then the other item is, I don't think there's nobody here from the Gold Country. Okay, there isn't.
Well, that's too bad.
I know that's too bad, but we'll make sure they get it, and I'll read it to them.
Yeah,
Okay. The second item is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville recognizing June 15th through 18th, 2017 as Eldorado County Fair Week. And I have another item here. The fair is great. It's been going on forever. I remember when I first came up here, one of the coolest things I remember was the county fair. Lots of animals and projects and 4-H and the races and the wheelbarrow race. So I encourage everyone to go. A good time will be had by all. There's a proclamation. I will read it at the opening of the fair Thursday at noon. I will read this proclamation. So does anybody have anything they'd like to say about either of those things? Okay. All right. We have the public comment on non-agenda items. Hold on. I have to read something first. You can stand there. Just hold on. Let's go. Okay. These items are on items. This time is for comments on items that are not on the agenda, that we have some jurisdiction over, and that so those two items. We cannot take action on anything unless it's very specific circumstances, which almost certainly not come up. And then you have 3 minutes, and I just ask that you are kind in your words. Don't say anything that you would not want to have said about you. So that. Oh, and then please identify yourself and where you're from. Now.
My name is Dorothy Wilson. I've been a resident of the city of Placerville for 40 years. And I would like to read to you a letter that I submitted to the Mountain Democrat, and it was published a couple of weeks ago. I am appalled by the new downtown Placerville parking regulations. In one blow, they doubled the per hour fee, extended the monitored parking time, and extended the days from 6 to 7. And the new signs in the garage don't even specify what the hours will be when the garage is monitored. It used to be from, I thought 8 to 5, but a friend of mine corrected me and said 9 to 5, so I'm not really sure right now. But now, currently, I've read the ordinance, and it's from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. But the signs in the garage don't tell me that. What time will my 2 free hours expire? If I come downtown for a musical event at 8 p.m. and I leave at 11 p.m., will I have to pay for the third hour? Even with the prior parking regulations, I have heard so many people who come here for lunch and shopping say, oh no, we can't go in that store because our parking time is running out. These new regulations will not only drive tourists, but also locals away from downtown. Why should I pay to park to have lunch and shop when I can go away from downtown and do that for free, maybe even to Folsom? I could be wrong, but rumors I've heard tell me that the parking budget was already in the hole with the last regulations and pay stations. Now the city has borrowed money to pay for new pay stations and signage. This looks like a lose-lose situation. Our town is going to lose sales tax revenue because of this, and if what I've heard is true, we're going to have to pay back the debt for the new machines and signage, plus more hours for the parking monitors. Can somebody please explain to me why our city council thought these new parking regulations were a good idea? Many downtown businesses have had signs in their windows saying shop local. I have always tried to do that, but now I just don't know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Sheila Kelly. I own Powell Steamers on Main Street. And I have some questions about I know we need to probably get on the agenda for next time, but I have everybody's pretty concerned and confused about the free 2 hours, and if you go and you come back. And I have some paperwork that shows that once you get in there and put your license in, you're in, whether you leave and come back or not. There's no way to clarify that. I have petitions that people are signing. Everybody's kind of shying away from Main Street. We're all kind of losing business right now. I feel since this has been in play, our numbers are down. And there's quite a few of us that feel this way. So I think what we want to do is try to get on the agenda for next month to get into detail what we can try to do to change it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Phyllis Goldie, and I have lived in Placerville for 29 years. Raised my children here, and happy to do that. I love downtown Placerville. It is my favorite place to go. I walk my dog down there every day. I shop there. I love it. But I'm worried about the parking issue because it seems to me that it is not a fair situation for those employees who have to work downtown. I'm a customer. I can hike it. It's my issue to get down there. But employees have to work there. Many of them are minimum wage employees. They can't pay $18 a day to park in the garage or wherever. They really don't have that option. So I would like to know, I drove down Main Street several times in the last couple weeks. It's vacant. It's vacant. It was vacant at Independent. It was vacant here. It was vacant there. How's it working for you that you have that new parking thing? It doesn't seem to be working for me. I don't think it's working at all. Is the goal empty storefronts? Because if you're wanting people to have incentive to go downtown, you need to make it easier for them because there are other options. And we don't want that. I love downtown. I want downtown to flourish. And I know there are petitions going on. I know that that there are people who are very unhappy with this, and I hope you reconsider that because I do believe that it was not well thought out for those who work in downtown especially. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Andrew Vonderschmidt from the El Dorado Arts Council. How you doing today? I want to talk about a couple of our programs that we got coming up. Dana Gioia, our state poet laureate, is visiting El Dorado County on Friday, this coming Friday. He will be joined by Taylor Graham, our El Dorado County poet laureate, and Zoe Eddy, who is the Poetry Out Loud champion from last year, at the Placerville Library on Friday at 5:30. It's a free event, family friendly. Bring a picnic, come out, enjoy some poetry, some classical guitar. I have some postcards right here. And also we are opening our new exhibition, A Deep Blue Lead, that talks about the story of the geology that helped shape our region. It's a really fascinating show with some historical charts, maps, images, and a talk from George Wielden coming up in July about the Deep Blue Lead. So come out, check us out, enjoy. It's all free. It's all for the community. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Yes. Are the postcards on the back table? That would be a place to put them.
Yes, they are.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Very good. Anyone else? Okay, Mike.
Good evening, City Council. Just a question. Well, first, a thank you to, I guess, the staff. The largest pothole in the neighborhood got some asphalt today, so thank you. It's big as a kitchen table. But the rest of the road is destroyed. So you've asked me to be patient. I've been patient because my road project was on the books and it was closed out and its funds were taken to put Main Street into Disneyland, right? So I'm just asking for $1,000 of cold patch. I'm not asking for a perfect road, but my patience is running out. That seems like a very simple thing. $1,000 of cold patch. Okay, so just a solid question. When can I expect that? A week, a month, a year? Give me an idea. Thank you.
You're talking about mosquito, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All right. Oh. Come on.
Because with the budget, it's all priorities, right?
Right.
You have to choose, I understand. Main Street got new bike racks. For me, filling potholes is a bigger priority than bike racks.
Yes, we did already.
Yeah, just did it.
Well, okay.
Might I? Oh, go ahead.
Hold on.
You're good.
Okay. That's okay. Does anyone else wish to address us? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can
Hold
I
on,
ask
no,
a
no,
question,
no, no.
please?
Do we have any written comments? Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I know normally our protocol is to ask for future agenda items later on in our evening, but we have a number of folks here from the Main Street district that are concerned about the parking regulations. And I would ask that while they're still here, that we ask staff to agendize that item at their earliest convenience.
Nice, thank you.
Well, okay, let's,
Absolutely.
I don't expect these folks to wait until after the budget till we get to the very last item on our agenda tonight to talk about that future.
well, yeah,
issue. And I'm not saying when, but at staff's earliest convenience.
okay. Yes, that's fine. I'd like to comment on the parking here in a moment. Is there anything else?
I wanted to point out also that the funds that were used to purchase the bike racks
Cannot
were not eligible to fix a pothole, a pipe, or a drain. So those, to not get those bike racks would have been a big screw up on our part.
Yeah.
Separate funds.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Parking. Thank you very much for your heartfelt comments regarding parking. There is a bit of history regarding parking. Normally, I would not. This is something we would just, thank you very much and go on our way. But it's important to know because there's a lot of, I think, there's a lot of history behind parking downtown. The reason that we had the machines that we had that died and we had to replace them was because some time ago the merchants and employees, but I guess it was mostly the merchants, came to the city. Nobody here woke up one day and said, I'd like to charge more for parking. Okay, that didn't happen. That's not the way it went. Nobody did that. Not us. Nobody, I think, was on the council. You might have been when this originally happened about 12 years ago. And that was because the merchants and employees could not park on Main Street. They had a problem that was kind of internal to the merchant class on Main Street. And they came to us and said, help us solve this problem by creating this parking system where we would have some timed parking, we would have 2-hour parking, there would be these machines, you would buy additional parking. They came up with the original 2 hours of free parking, and that's how this thing all started. Who are they? What?
Who were they that came and asked? Wasn't
I don't know specifically. It was the merchants. It was a group of merchants on Main Street. I don't know who they were. They were a group of merchants on Main Street.
Okay,
But
that works.
And then those machines finally went out, they finally failed, and so we had to replace them. We created a parking committee. They worked with the PDA, which is not a perfect group, but it is the Placerville Downtown Association. Efforts were made to include folks that were merchants and whatnot downtown. And this is what that group of people came up with. One of the things that we said, because this city council did eat $100,000 on the debt from those old parking machines. And one of our messages was, we're not going to do that again. So they came up with this. Now, the answer to the question about employees, you can buy leased parking. And that's where you'd put your employees. And a number of employers on Main Street do that. They buy leased parking, and that's where their employees park. And in fact, of about the 550 or so parking spaces that are available in the parking district, about 180 of those are leased parking. So, if it was up to me, I would tear out the machines. I wouldn't have that, and I would just say you just sort of live by your own devices. My guess is then we would have the same problem as that we had 12 years ago, is that there would be a group of people parking out in front of their stores. And this is not unique to Placerville. I have done work up and down the Mother Lode and in all sorts of small towns, and they all have the same problem. There's not enough parking for the kind of historic parts of the town where, obviously developed before cars even existed. And they have a problem with the merchants and their employees parking in the parking spaces that they would like to reserve for customers. So this was the fix that was presented to this council by the parking committee regarding that. Now, I'd be happy to have a meeting on that, but my guess is we would have to go back through the system. We would go back to some form of the committee. We use the Measure H committee, which actually has, I believe, it had at the time a store owner on Main Street and a property owner on Main Street on it, just by coincidence, and then 2 people from the PDA. And they came up with this plan. So it's fine if you want to come and talk to us, and I mean it. We can agendize something and talk about parking on Main Street again. But the plan that we are now living with was created by folks, some of whom are on Main Street already. So
And it
it
was,
doesn't.
John, it was the parking committee
It was-
that we took there.
Yeah, the parking committee came to us after having several meetings. We had some, there were 3 or 4 meetings held in this building. I think 3 meetings held in this building. They were noticed. They went out to the merchants. There was a handful of people. I went to the very first one, and there was a handful of people there. But that's how this came up.
And the night we
So,
approved it, nobody was
so,
here.
so, so that's fine. I'm just saying the kind of the history of what happened, and I'm saying that this was a recommendation that came by and large from the folks that were tasked with coming up with this thing. I'm happy to have another meeting on it.
Mr. Mayor?
I'm not sure what we would do without having to go back to the merchants, back to the property owners, back to this thing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
my hope would be that what you just described would take place again, just in a overview format, since the Parking Committee and PDA and the various citizens have had numerous opportunities to give the city and the committee their input, that we just simply review the general agreements that were reached and why they were reached, and just offer that out. And if
That's fine.
there are businesses that need to go back and talk to their business association, then they would need to do that.
Sure.
But it wouldn't be at the
That-
city council's table.
That would be fine.
Bring it back as a report
Yeah,
to
sure,
clarify and
exactly.
have a discussion, but not as an
Just
action item. Yeah.
almost as
Yeah.
it was the evening that practically no one was here, and it was adopted very quickly and very quietly.
Yeah, be happy to clarify that, because I understand there's confusion out there. I'm
Okay.
happy to-
But I
That would
just
be
really, I really want to say this was not a city council thing. I mean.
Well, we approved it
we
eventually.
approved- We
because
had to.
We
I
had
mean,
to buy the
that's it.
machines.
But we still, like you said, they did numerous meetings and they had all kinds of, it was, but my understanding is that they didn't get the objections that are now coming forth.
And that's highly likely. It should be noted too, and this is not to they tore the original parking meters off of Main Street, I think in the 70s, if I remember,
I have two in my
mid-70s.
basement I bought.
Very good. And then ever since then, there's been attempts to kind of come up with a parking solution for Main Street and the historic district. Every time there's a new one, there's always these sort of growing pains that come into it. If we can put up additional signage, that will make it more explicit. If you come to town at 8 o'clock in the evening, you shouldn't be paying anything because the parking only goes to 7 now. So there's that. And anyway, we'll bring this back. We'll kind of do a rehistory of the history of what happened in this last iteration around parking. And then y'all can come and listen and provide input. You should also go and talk to the PDA. You should talk to your neighbors and find out, because some of them may have very well been involved in the process. I don't recall the folks actually off the top of my head who were at the meetings, but I believe, who were the two? It was Dennis Thomas and Sue Reese were on the committee. So.
But there were more than just those.
Well, then there was the Measure H committee. So.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, that's kind of how the parking thing happened the way it is. We're happy to agendize it. We can agendize it. We have another meeting in June and one in July, and then we'll be back in August. So.
Just as an aside, and I know it's oranges and apples, but I just went to Sacramento, went to a meeting, was there 3 hours, and I paid $22 to park. So that's what the parking. And that's what, and I
Okay.
said it's oranges
That's
and
fine,
apples,
thank
but I'm
you,
just
thank
telling you, just an aside, that this
Okay.
goes on, and that's, the people have to have their parking paid for down there. It's
Yeah.
like we do. We have to have our lots paid. Somebody has to pay for our parking
Please,
structure
please,
and everything,
please.
so.
Thank you very much. Okay. Is there anything else? Okay.
Do we not have the hours on the signs?
What?
I thought
Okay, anyway. The consent calendar is our next item. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote, unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of full text of the all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. So, does anybody wish to pull anything off of our consent calendar?
Nope.
Okay. Would any members of the public like to comment on the consent calendar?
Nice. Oh, there goes Pat Leahy. Pat set it up for a headline.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move approval of the consent calendar?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Thank you. Okay, we have public hearings. Hold a public hearing for the proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 operating and capital improvement program budget proposals, providing any additional input to staff, developing the budget. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight we'd like to talk about the local economic environment, specifically sales tax, give you an update on the general fund budget, also the other special fund budgets the city has, as well as the capital improvement program budget. Sales tax. So your Bradley Burns sales tax, which is the first 1% of the 8.25%, is the most significant local economic indicator you have. It represents 56.1% of your general fund revenue. You continue to experience strong per capita sales tax, $425 in 2016 per person. Placerville is ranked number 37 out of 539 cities. This is the first time we've ranked below 40 that I can remember, and we hope to be number 1. So the quarter ended December 2016. Receipts were up by $98,098, or 8.42%. That compares to statewide average sales tax at 3.02%. So the contributors to your sales tax are shown here, and about the same as last year. There's a few variations. Auto dealers have continued to make a greater portion of your sales tax, as well as the county pool, but you can see the percentages there. And then looking at the fourth quarter, how we compared year over year, you can see by business, most business categories outperformed the previous year. There are a few losers, apparel stores and your home furnishing appliances, 10.17%. But you can see that building materials continue to grow at 4.23% for that quarter year over year. Auto dealers strong at 4.97%, as well as your county pool 19.88%. And you can see the other categories there. And that's important when you look at the we'll jump to the next graph in just a minute, but I want to show you all of our businesses are very important, but we do like to show you who's in the top 10. And the first 5 are the same as last year this time. Raley's did move up from number 7 to number 6. Hunt & Sons is in the same position. Rite Aid, it's the first time on the list. And Tractor Supplies.
There's a growth on Broadway. That's a
Growth on Broadway.
excellent.
Yeah.
That's not Main Street, though.
Looking at your growth, sorry about that. You can see the historical growth as well as what we're forecasting going into next year. What we used for growth factors is the Board of Equalization forecast. They have their own economists that do a fine job statewide. And you can see that in the fourth quarter of 2016, we're forecasting 7.46%, 8.42% for the fourth quarter of 2016. And then in 2017, the first quarter in 2018, 4.2%, and then 4.6%. Late breaking news, we actually assumed 2.76 for the first quarter of this year, and we actually came in at 6%, so 3.42 greater, so it's great news. So this year we anticipate 4.6 million, next year 4.8 million and some change. Looking at historical sales tax, you can see that that big dip in the middle is the Great Recession, and we've made a lot of inroads in improving. The kind of purple bar is actual sales tax or forecasted sales tax. The blue in the middle is adjusted for inflation each year, and then the white is adjusted for cumulative inflation. So, for example, in 16-17 and 17-18, adjusted annually 3.2%, and then cumulatively in 17-18 and 16-17, 31.3%, meaning we've experienced 31.3% inflation since June of 2006, excuse me. The general fund is your only true source of discretionary dollars. The local economic vitality and aggressive cost recovery are key to a healthy general fund. It pays for most city services, including public safety, street maintenance, and recreation. In developing this year's budget, we began with a status quo budget, meaning kind of the same baseline services that we had last year. It does maintain existing program delivery to the greatest extent possible. We did assume economic impacts in the increases in services and supplies, the cost of those things. We also assume the negotiated salary and benefit commitments to employees, the 2018 minimum wage from $10.50 to $11. It does include $16,000 in safety and certificate renewal type training primarily, and there's no set aside for community promotions. Just as a side note, retiree medical is assumed as pay-as-you-go, meaning the actual premiums for the following year. We did assume a 10% increase for premiums, but there's no future funding included. It does include a $17,000 increase in animal control services, which now totals $204,000. It also includes a $75,000 contingency for unforeseen expenditures, which is afforded by a transfer from your reserve for economic uncertainties. The general fund is not funding any capital outlay. However, we do have $142,000 in your equipment replacement fund, which is being used to purchase equipment this year. Full disclosure, your debt service is shown on this chart, and it totals $2.8 million. And you can see the allocation there, $176,000 to the general fund for the City Hall lease, which was refinanced. We're saving about $6,000 this year because of that refinance. And then the 2015 equipment lease, $58,000. And then you can see the other water, sewer. Sewer, just so you know, represents about 45.31% of your sewer enterprise fund currently. Transfers, we wanted to show you the transfers in and out to the general fund, and you can see the differences there. All of these transfers occur routinely year after year. The dollar amounts change slightly, depend on the need. So gas tax, the transfer in up by $62,000. That's primarily due to SB1, the new funding that we're going to receive this year. General fund to parking actually decreased by $3,800, and that's due to the parking plan. However, as an exchange, your parking citation revenue is being accounted for in your parking fund, and that's about $21,000. The transfer to the general CIP fund, that's for capital improvement programs, as well as some one-time ASLs. And general fund liability fund is the transfer out is $14,000 higher. That's due to primarily due to a $19,000 increase. I know it's actually nets less, but there's a $19,000 increase to the general fund's portion of general liability insurance. So your transfers net into the general fund is $150,781 under this proposal. Let's talk about ASLs, or alternative service levels. These are change in program. This could be expanding a program, shrinking a program, adding a position, removing a position, and there's several here tonight. And what I'd like to do is go through by department and kind of hand it over to Pierre Rivas to talk about the engineering positions we have here tonight.
Thank you very much, Dave. With the passage of Measure L and the additional money that we're going to have in order to adequately facilitate the CIP projects that we have up and coming, we're looking at abolishing our current part-time associate civil engineer position and then hiring a full-time associate civil engineering position. So that'll leave us with 3 full-time PEs. Of course, Rebecca Neves, our city engineer, and then we have Corey. He was our recent hire. We replaced Katie. He's also an associate civil engineer, and so hopefully with a third engineer, we'll be able to keep pace with the workload that we have with all the current workload with our CIPs, and also review of private development project applications. So that's what the Department of Development Services is requesting tonight.
Thank you, Pierre. And I think Mr. Yule has an ASL or 2 here as well.
Thank you, David. Within our Recreation and Parks Division, we want to provide 2 basketballs for each team that's in our youth basketball program. As it continues to grow, we're running out of space for basketballs, so we're going to pass those costs along to the participants in the program and provide each coach with 2 balls for their practice that they can keep and collect over the years. Most of the coaches start when their children are young and follow them through the 8th grade. So by the time they get up there, they should have quite a assortment of balls. The next one is to establish a new senior maintenance worker position, and this one will primarily work on streets. As we're all well aware, we have a drastic need to catch up on our street maintenance, and this position will really provide the necessary leadership to form a team to address all of our street issues. The next one is to abolish a senior maintenance worker position, and that would be in conjunction with establishing a new public works superintendent. Our overall goal is to create teams, and we need a strong leader to be able to do that. And when I refer to teams, I mean we really need to get to the point where we have a competent crew that can handle sewer-related items, another one for streets, and a water operations person. And so that's kind of what we're striving for, and these funding requests enable us to really set the foundation to make that happen.
Thank you, Steve. And we do have the Econ Solution software. Cleve, could you speak to that one?
Sure. Before I go to that, though, I just want to add a couple of things to what Steve just said regarding the last position, the superintendent position. Another need for that is due to the fact that we've now combined our water systems, which requires a higher water distribution certification. So it's not just that we want this, we are required to have this, and so it's a higher requirement, and the person will be required to carry this certification. So there are additional duties, additional work, additional certifications that will come as part of that. And then the other thing I was just going to mention quickly is on the new senior maintenance worker for streets that we're proposing through the SB1, or what we're calling the RMRA funding. We need to do a little bit of work on that one. I got some notice today about how that funding is going to be used and what you have to do to actually request it or qualify for it. We need to make sure that that funding can be used for that purpose. So we'll need to do some more work in that area. The item that I have, actually 2 of them I have on here. The first one is the Econ Solutions. Econ Solutions is a program similar to Buxton that some of you may be familiar with. It's an economic business analytics program that provides basically telling businesses or telling the city what type of buyers we have coming into our city, what the makeup of them is, and it helps us look for what type of business would do well in the community. Again, it's similar to the Buxton program. Our analysis of it is it's a lot cheaper, and it also provides a little bit more user-friendly, easier to use. And the Economic Advisory Committee, PEAK, recommended that we consider this program. The cost for that program is $5,000 a year, so there's $5,000 for that. In addition, in looking at the program, we spoke to an economic development consultant with HDL. That's the company that we do our sales tax through. They're the company that sponsors this program. And we're very impressed with his abilities and some of the things he's done in terms of consulting. And so we are requesting another $5,000 in this fund that we would use for economic development consulting. And we will work with the Economic Advisory Committee to pick a specific project, and there's a couple of them we have in mind that we will focus on and invite him to come in and consult with us to make that more viable and bring new business into whatever that project is that we select. So that's the purpose of that funding. I've already made contact with the person if the budget is approved. He's actually set to come up the end of June, I believe it is, to meet with me and look at projects and talk about what they can do. So we'll get started on that real soon. So next item I believe is also mine. I'll continue, but I'm going to ask maybe Councilmember Thomas can add to this one if she wants to. This is the Opportunity Knox funding. As you know, Marshall Foundation, Marshall Hospital, and the county have all contributed to this program to help us identify and collect data on our homeless population, which will in turn enable us to get additional funding to fund homeless programs to help resolve or mitigate the problems that we have with the homeless. So Wendy, I don't know if you have something you can add to that.
Absolutely, thank you. There's a new requirement from HUD, that's the Housing and Urban Development Department, where all homeless funds flow through from the federal government, that by January 2018, cities and counties have to have a continuum of care in place, and it has to include a single point of entry, which means that anyone needing services of any kind, homeless services, have to go through that single portal. And it also includes that all the service providers are a part of that entity. And so that's exactly what this funding is. We've been 3 years in the making on this collaborative, and we're now at the door of making it happen. An entity, a local entity, has been chosen, which is Only Kindness and Renee Evans Group, which, you know, she's well suited for this. It was a RFP bidded process. She won the contract, and so we are funding this single point of entry for the first year to get it up and running, which will then in turn allow us to receive HUD funding. And it's quite meaningful, and like Cleve said, Marshall Hospital, many thanks to them, they pledged $20,000 to this effort. Marshall Foundation for Community Health gave $10,000. The county gave $20,000, and Barton is also on board up in South Lake Tahoe, as well as several other. We are also in talks with the tribe. And so it's appropriate that the city of Placerville contribute to this cause, as we are greatly impacted by the homeless challenges and opportunities, and that impacts our police department as well. So also Hangtown Village Square has also pledged $5,000 to this effort. As private businesses, we're also going out for funds to accomplish this. So,
thank you, Vice Mayor Thomas. And now we have some ASLs from our Chief Ortega, starting with the police officer position.
Thank you, Dave. Council members, we're asking for some support. The first ASL would be to establish a police officer position for restorative policing. This is a DOJ grant that was first awarded almost 3 years ago, and it's been delayed because of budget constraints, but this year we have found a way to fund it, hopefully use it. But I intend to use it to be kind of the point of contact in our department as something of a problem-oriented police officer position, to bring all of the resources together for things dealing with the homeless, substandard buildings, other nuisance problems within the community. In addition, this person would fill a patrol position. But we want to start going down that road where we have some leverage within our own department to work with other city departments as well as public and private agencies to deal with these many problems that affect our community, including the homeless. So one qualifier I like to put in there is it is one for one officer, but you won't see that tomorrow. It's going to take time to screen, hire, and train this person. So, but it is, in my opinion, on the road down the right track. The next position that we wanted to do is to increase our community services officer from about a third time to almost a half-time position. This person is responsible for vehicle abatement throughout the city and sits on several different panels. does a variety of other tasks. She would also be part of that POP team that I envision to work on nuisance problems within the city. And we think that's a good use of our funds there. Next, we want to abolish the current 3 part-time dispatcher positions that are all vacant and roll that into the next line down, which is a full-time dispatcher position. I think this was a good idea in theory, but it just hasn't worked out as was probably originally proposed several years ago. And with that staffing of 1 more dispatcher, I can eliminate a lot of overtime within the dispatch center and the police department. So hopefully you all see fit to support all of this, a little bit of a reorg and a little bit of forward thinking on our department to try to get some things done in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. So as you can see, the ASL requests total $264,305. Of those positions, there's $72,192 in projected cost recovery, which then nets $192,113. And these ASLs have been incorporated in the following slides. So when you see the numbers, these numbers are included in those cost amounts. Moving right into the budget, you can see the 16-17 revised budget as compared to the proposed 17-18 budget, which the revenue is totals $8,517,896. Operating expenditures $8,625,654, and transfers in net $199,594. At that point, before adjustments, you have a $91,836 surplus. We then add the ASLs, which does include $20,000 in one-time costs for the 2 ASLs, and $16,000 for conference training and travel, $82,689 for CIP projects, which are more one-time in nature, for $170,730 in adjustments, brings you to a deficit, which is planned deficit of $78,894, utilizing past surpluses for one-time purposes. Drilling down to your revenues, start with sales tax, which we talked about. The budget, year-over-year budget, not actual to actual, but year-over-year is a 6% growth assumption. All other taxes, which is your property, your TOT, your business license, your franchise fees for cable, garbage and electricity, transfer taxes, totals $942,837. We did assume a 2% growth in property tax. Construction permits was developed by the Development Services Department as a projection based on what we know today. Intergovernmental revenues, that's your VLF and your post incentive, mandated costs from the state, cost reimbursements, as well as police officer standard and training. Slight decrease, the post is slightly less due to less training, so less training costs. And charges for services, anything from recreation fees to planning fees to engineering fees, all charges, all fees we collect, slightly less, $18,952 based on conservative estimates. Fines and forfeitures, motor vehicle code fines, vehicle abatement. We talked about parking citation revenue being moved. That's part of the reason why you show that $51,000 drop, because the $21,000 in parking citation revenue is now accounted for in the parking fund. Use of money in property is interest, rentals, sundries. Slight increase there due to the ongoing rental of Old City Hall. And other financing sources is your overhead to water and sewer funds, as well as CIP cost recovery, which totals $296,000. Totals both $873,527 for a total of $8,598,653, which represents a 4.36% increase in expenditures. That also includes the one-time transfers out. Looking by department, and actually that was revenue, so no transfers out on that. Looking at by department, You can see what the amounts are. They're pretty self-explanatory. Non-departmental includes audit, debt service, city hall phones, animal control fees, LAFCO fees, bank fees, postage, transfers out, and contingency. So again, it's $8,677,547. Looking at it by expenditure, we did assume the commitments to personnel to date. We did include the minimum wage increase, the 10% increase in medical insurance, which might be slightly less, but we won't know until later this month, effective 2018. Materials and supplies, pretty self-explanatory. Contracts, that's audit, software, legal, building repairs, utilities, printing. Okay, that's it. Other expenditures, printing, advertising, county and state fees, debt service, LAFCO fees, animal control fees. Again, no capital outlay. You have your $75,000 contingency. So before transfers, $8.8 million, $150,000 net coming in, $8,677,000. And looking at the allocation of your general fund by dollar, so every dollar coming into the general fund, this is how it's allocated based on this plan. So 34 cents to the police department, 13 cents to development services, 35 to community services, penny to city council, 8 cents to administration, 4 cents to finance, and 5 cents non-departmental. So the council remains very affordable, penny per dollar. This is just kind of a visualization of your budget showing you revenues, how it compares to your expenditures as a proportion of the total budget. This kind of looks like a swimming crane, but it's actually your net revenues forecast. And you can see that we've had a really good run from 10-11 forward up until 15-16, and then a slight deficit this year, and then a planned deficit in 17-18 based on our forecast. So, Measure J. We took our sales tax forecast of 4.43% growth and applied that to Measure J, Measure H, and Measure L. And you see that there. This does assume the personnel commitments for sworn here. It also, let's see, that's it. Okay, so we're showing a $88,000 deficit right now. We have a forecasted fund balance as of June 30th of $284,000. So at that burn rate, you're at about 3 years. So we just need to watch that closely because we don't want to exhaust our fund balance. Measure H, same growth factor for sales tax, 4.43%. We did assume the continuation of the discount program, the sewer charge discount. There's a recommendation from the Measure H, Measure L committee, which we'll talk about later, but for budgeting purposes, that's what we assumed. We also assumed $543,000 going to set aside for sewer and water projects, sewer projects actually, primarily. Measure L, again, based on what we know, we will only have 1 quarter by the end of September under our belt, but based on what we're seeing, we assumed 4.43% growth overall, and it comes out to $2,068,378. And you'll see in later slides what those dollars will be allocated to as far as water, sewer, and street projects. Sewer Enterprise Fund, still dealing with the deficit. It's something we'll be addressing through our rate study, which will be, the results will be coming to you this fall. We're forecasting $5.4 million in revenues, expenditures 6.2 before transfers in, net transfers including net $406,000 for Measure H. For a total deficit of $401,000. You add the ASLs of $19,994, $10,373 for conference, training, and travel. Total adjustments $30,000 for a net deficit of $431,000, which will come from your rate stabilization fund. This is the last year that we can do that in its entirety of a $431,000 transfer, so we're going to need to address that through the rate study. Water's doing better. When you look at your water enterprise fund, it's actually demonstrating a balanced budget with ASLs and conference training and travel, surplus of $5,334. Other funds, these are smaller funds. I'll just comment on a few of them unless you have any questions. The gas tax fund does assume SB1, and we're showing actually a deficit, and that's because we're spending down some of our gas tax fund balance on striping, which is $30,000 this year. The parking fund shows a net surplus of $61,000 before capital outlay. And the plan is $40,000 going to a capital project this year to improve our parking lots, as well as $20,000 in a sinking fund for long-term capital replacement, such as your parking structure. The SRO grant, just one comment, it's showing a $20,000 deficit. We are in negotiations with both of our local public school districts, and right now this is the commitment we have. It's actually a preliminary commitment of roughly $56,000, and we're hoping we'll have better information for you at budget adoption. But right now it's showing a $20,000 deficit. If it turns out that we can't negotiate a balanced budget, we may have to take that $20,000 from the general fund, just so you know. So unless there's any other questions, actually, let's see now, anything there, let's move on. All right. Equipment replacement in the blue box. You can see that we're funding $142,000 in equipment citywide from that fund, and the proceeds of that fund are from the surplus of vehicles, the vehicles you've surplus, old police cars, old public works trucks, taking that money and utilizing it for new equipment. So your total operating budget proposed revenue $20,982,038, expenditures before capitalized expenditures $19,062,665, or $1.9 million, and all of that $1.9 million is being spent on capital projects, as you'll see in the following charts. Just an update, we currently have 8 active transportation projects, and actually Western Placerville Interchange. There's also the Phase 2 project, which will be coming up this next year. So there's actually 9 total, but it's kind of combined there. We have 16 active sewer and water projects, from the sewer lift station rehabilitation Phase 2 project all the way down to the sewer system condition assessment program. And we completed, or I should say, the city completed 7 projects over the past 12 months, and they're listed here, from Blair's Lane Bridge all the way down to the website update. Jumping on to Measure H, Measure L Sales Tax Committee, you appointed a committee this past late winter, and they got busy and held 3 meetings. At their meeting held on May 18th, they actually made a recommendation to you, and the first thing was, and these are kind of more 10,000-foot bullet points, there's a lot of details behind it, but the first thing was to fund $551,286 in street-only projects. So these are projects, there's no utilities involved, it's just street work. Also funding $1,644,505 in sewer system-only projects. And then $750,000 in combination streets, sewer system, and water system projects, and also to set aside $200,000 of your proceeds, of Measure L proceeds, for a operating reserve in case we have a change order or our bids come in too high, higher than the engineer's estimate. Also, they're asking that the council provide options for the phase out over time of the Measure H sewer charge discount program with the sewer and water rate study results. So the projects that the committee recommended, those big numbers, these are the pieces to those big numbers. And so what I'd like to do is hand it over to Pierre Rivas and Rebecca Neves to kind of go through these and give you a brief overview.
Okay, looking at the chart that says proposed measure HL CIP budget, the first one you see there is a sodium hydroxide pump manifold system replacement. That is a system that is very, very leaky. It's a very hazardous, corrosive material. So we actually got some bid estimates to replace the entire system. So it'd be all the tubing, plumbing, and the pumps. The second one, digester number 2 pump replacement. That is a pump that we've been eyeing to replace for quite some time. So we're requesting to replace that. The next one is the automatic transfer switch replacement. That is the switch that transfers power to our generator should there be a power failure. And so we're replacing that. Currently, if there is a power failure, we have to call out for somebody with the right type of equipment and clothing in order to flip the switch. So the expense could rise if we have power failures, say during the winter months and things like that. But that's something that we need to get fixed. It's a very old system, and the parts to fix it are currently unavailable. So we need a brand new one. The grit classifier replacement, very, very expensive piece of equipment that was destroyed during the January and February storm event when rocks, gravel, and grit entered into the headworks, and then basically caused a lot of damage to the grit classifier replacement. That is a must replace. Grit pump replacement, same thing, that was damaged during the storm events. The screen replacement, that's your main feature at the headworks when the main trunk line that comes into the plant that removes rags, debris, and different stuff from the material before it actually goes into the plant for treatment. That was also destroyed from rock, gravel, and grit that entered the plant inadvertently during the storms. The Hangtown Creek stream flow, temperature gauge replacement and calibrations. Those are necessary instruments that are in stream due to the high flows of Hangtown Creek. All those instruments were completely destroyed and need to be replaced so we can be in compliance with the permitting for the plant. And with that, that's what we're requesting for the wastewater treatment plant. I'm going to turn the other remainder over to our city engineer, Rebecca Neves, who will talk about the remaining items. Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre. We have a couple projects that we've obviously had our eye on for some time, one of them being Mosquito Road. We are proposing approximately $350,000 of Measure L be utilized towards that effort, including it with the Placerville Station 2 Park and Ride facility that allows us to deliver the project through economy of scale.
How far up Mosquito Road will we be paving?
We will go as far as we can. I'm working off of a...
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. No, we are, the goal is to hit the county line. Now, whether or not we can hit that, that's a far stretch.
So someone should tell Mike.
Yeah, should tell Mike to move.
I have,
Closer.
yes.
Okay.
I've had that conversation with Mr. Drobish.
I
yes.
had a feeling that was the case.
Monthly
Okay.
basis.
I'm sorry. Proceed.
Thank you. And we also are proposing $50,000 towards our annual crack seal program. Obviously, you know, it's like, as I described at the last chat, it's like an oil change. You need to maintain the engine. And one of the most effective ways of maintaining a street is to have an effective crack seal program, as well as the following project, which is a slurry maintenance program budgeted at $150,000. We have already developed a preliminary list for this fiscal year that we are currently getting bids on, and we will come back with a formal recommendation at a following council meeting. We also are going to attempt to replace the sewer main located as part of the Mosquito Park and Ride project, the sewer main located directly behind Mosquito Outfitters, excuse me, within Randolph Creek. And then we are also putting out to bid our Madrone and Giovanni lift stations. This fiscal year fully funds that project for construction. We're anxiously awaiting that. We also are going to be producing an annual, much like we do with the maintenance list for the roads, we're going to be producing an annual I&I reduction project list. Pardon me. And we have $100,000 for that. Cedar Ravine Road sewer line replacement. There are some various areas where the sewer main is still located within the creek, and we are acquiring a balance to appropriate towards that project that will allow us to start saving for future construction. Mosquito Road, Clay to City Limits Road Stabilization Project, that is also in conjunction with the Placerville Station project. We're trying to deliver it as effectively as possible as one project. It may be bifurcated, but we're looking at options with that. Canal Street reconstruction, that is, as we've described, being our complete delivery project through Measure L. We would be funding the design and ancillary items to produce a biddable set of plans and specs that we could then go and obtain a final engineer's estimate and potentially look at the future option of financing the construction for that project. And then we will, as Dave mentioned, we will be establishing our Measure L operating reserve. Seems that things are costing more than we over anticipate with second week inside the ground, so it's nice to have that buffer as a contingency. And we, as Dave mentioned, we do have our other CIP projects that we are working on. And the one that covers with engineering is the Placerville Drive Bicycle and Pedestrian Facilities Project. We are meeting with Caltrans actually tomorrow in Marysville to look at the option of delivering that as a combined project with the Placerville Drive Bridge Replacement Project, which is a highway bridge program project, ultimately addressing the entire corridor of Placerville Drive. And with that, I will pass this on to Mr. Ewell.
Thank you, Rebecca. Within our Parks Division, we're planning to stain and paint the outside of the Hattie's Gift Shop located within our Goldbug Park, and that's to protect the structural integrity of the building. We'd like to install a shade structure at our newest park, Duffy Park. It's a gorgeous new park, lacking shade, and the neighborhood there would really like to see some shade, specifically around the new tot lot structure. Maintenance building roof repair replacement at Lions Park. This is where we store all of our equipment for the two ball fields and what's considered kind of our regional park. And so we want to protect not only the building but what's inside it. Goldbug Park tree care and removal project. We have quite a few hazard trees within the park that need to be removed, and so the allocation for that represents the city's portion of the funds necessary to match the state to get those trees out of the park. Registration software program is within our recreation division, and our registration software will no longer be supported as of January 1, so we need to be able to collect that revenue so we can get it into Dave so we can balance the budget. So we're looking to get new software for that. In order to do that, we need a little bit more hardware to provide access to some of our remote locations, such as the Aquatic Center and Goldbug Park. The Town Hall Security Project it refers to this building right here and some of the antiquated problems we have as a public facility, and this is an attempt to improve security throughout the building. And with that, then within Public Works, we have, Mr. Warren alluded to it earlier, a public parking rehabilitation project where we're going to try to start making some strides towards improvements throughout our public parking lots with an emphasis on the parking structure to begin with.
Thank you, Rebecca and Steve. And Chief, did you want to speak to the telephone system?
Yeah, this is just really basic. Our administrative telephone system within the police department, it dates back, I think, my best estimate is to the early 1990s. So we just need that replaced. Half my staff is, yes, sir, the old cranking, holding phone and get the operator on the party line. So we just want that replaced, and we hope you support that. Thank you very much.
Aren't you asking a little much, Chief?
I know. I'm sorry. We could go back to the string and cans.
No, we're
we'll
sorry.
Work that out.
Thank you, Chief.
Antiques.
I'd like to back up one slide. So the 17 Measure H, Measure L projects, which total $3,472,354. Those are the same projects that were presented at the May 30th neighborhood chat. No changes there. And you can see that the projects that Mr. Rivas mentioned, the FEMA projects, those we're assuming approximately 94% reimbursement through FEMA. That isn't a for sure thing. We're just estimating it, but we feel pretty good about it. And then the difference coming from Measure H to the 6% backfilling with Measure H. So, and then on the other projects, you can see they total a little over 1.3 million. So when you add the Measure H, Measure L, and the other projects, it totals 4.7 million. And this is the Measure H, Measure L is part of a 5-year plan. That's the other thing I wanted to mention. It's not just for that single year, but it's a plan rolling into the following 4 years after that. So, all right. So the City Council held 2 budget workshops, one on May 24th, another on June 7th. And on the June 7th workshop, we presented these proposals to you that were comments received from the council regarding some of the items that we cut out. And one was, well, there was Planning Commission training. There was the idea of perhaps reconsidering between $750 to $1,000 for Planning Commission training. Also, the $6,000 sales tax software subscription, reevaluating that. Also, the evaluating deferment of the public works positions, as well as the water reclamation facility positions that were included in the ASLs. The plan is right now to build those into the water sewer rate study over a 5-year period, but we just wanted to bring that back to you for consideration. Also evaluate the replacement of the Corporation Yard roof at mid-year, bringing back options for that. The proposal was a $91,000 fairly comprehensive job on that, but coming back with some options for that. The other thing was, and I apologize, I didn't include this on this slide, was the GIS software upgrade training. So the upgrade itself is included in the budget I just presented. However, the training, the $1,100 in training is not. So whether or not you want to include that in your budget.
I'm sorry. What was that again, Dave?
The training for the GIS upgrade software. So how to use the new software. Right. Yes.
I do love the log roll icon on there, though.
Yeah.
Well done. That's really clever, Dave.
I wasn't sure if there were some comments made about that.
Very clever.
I'm still a little upset.
How much is that log roll again?
$2,800.
Steve, how much is that again?
I think it's $2,800.
$2,800.
Yeah, we caught the icon. Nice job.
I'm still not happy about it.
No, we can get one of those trees that we're going to tear down at Bedford and put it up there.
That doesn't sound safe. Okay.
So,
it's just a liability issue.
You know, we'd like to bring back a balanced budget to you on June 27th, and we're just wondering, we're asking for direction on these items. What you would like us to do? If you would like us to try to incorporate some of these into the budget, or adopt it as presented, or bring it back for adoption, and then perhaps bring these items back to you. We'll definitely bring, well, we can bring all these items back to you mid-year at some point. The public works, positions, equipment, as well as the water reclamation facility, we're definitely going to bring that back to you as options through your rate study process. The roof at the Corporation Yard, most definitely. The sales tax, I'd like to bring back a staff report on that to provide you more information as to the justification for it. And the Planning Commission training, that's something that we can address now, or we can address later in the year. It's up to you.
Okay. Any comments? Let's get going. Mark, I interrupted you in the middle of, I'm sure, what was a poignant and very thoughtful set of questions and comments.
Unfortunately, yes, it was.
Yes.
Hopefully the rest of our evening will go smoothly. Again, thank you, Mr. Warren, for his hard work, and staff, and all their input, and that difficult job that they've gotten us to this point. At the last workshop, we talked about they had the GIS program improvements in there, but they didn't have the support training. And I think without the support training, so that $1,100, I think, would be well invested in the expediency and ease of staff to get the training that they need. The Planning Commission training, I would certainly give up my council stipend to see that be guaranteed to be $1,000 if that's what Mr. Rivas needs to send our planning commissioners, so that they can get a full grasp of their role in the city and how it relates to the goals and visions of the community standards, as well as the importance of making Placerville the community that we want, and their role in making that happen. We talked about and I'm glad to see it included, the sales tax reporting for $6,000. Mr. Warren now closes the doors downstairs and keeps the staff in there and makes them work spreadsheets to do all of this by hand. He has an abacus, I understand, that they use to total it up.
On the crank phone?
Similar to Chief's crank phones. And I think for the amount of time that we can save with our we have a very hard-working finance department, and they don't need to be messing around with obsolete programs. And so $6,000 to have the power to know when a project or a question comes forward, I think that's a very, very important thing. It goes along with the other program that Cleve had in there, and that was the $10,000 that replaces and does a better job than Buxton. I know we've tried Buxton, the county's tried Buxton, and I don't think anybody has been impressed with it. So thank you to Cleve for finding a new avenue to get that valuable information, and I think it coupled with the sales tax software, the two should mesh together very nicely. During the break, I was able to speak with the city manager, and he assures me that even though I did not see it listed as a robust patch paving program, it is in there. And while we laugh, Mr. Drobish unfortunately has left, but his is an example of a road that if we had a program, say this, we were a couple of years in to Measure L, we would have a quality process to go out and put in a patch that would buy us 3 or 5 years and not immediately fly out like Cold Patch does. So I'm going to take Cleve's word for it that is in there. And as we've gone through this, one thing that I've noticed is that, and I was very pleased to see that the Development Services is receiving additional staffing. I'm very pleased to see that we're getting rid of the crank phones, and we're also reinstating and refilling and revitalizing some positions in the police department, and we are improving their presence on the street as well as their presence to respond to the normal citizens' inquiries. I was even pleased to see that the Parks Department, beyond Steve Yule's 2 basketballs, was even able to get some other projects done, the shade structure.
I cannot believe how much basketball
out at Duffy Park, and that's a beautifully maintained park. And so those kind of projects are very good. But,
he looks like
however, what I have noticed, sadly, and it's through no one's fault, it's through the fault of the Great Recession, because when I first got on the council in 2004 and before that thing hit, we had staffing levels that were acceptable at both our parks and our public works department. Then Randy Paces was the city engineer, and he was literally within months of establishing a road crew, a water crew, and a sewer crew. 5 members on each crew. It was going to allow him the flexibility, despite vacation, sick leave, holidays, and other emergencies, to have a dependable number of people maintaining those facilities throughout this city. As a result of the Great Recession, which I teased Cleve that Dave Warren loves to say that, our Public Works Department has got to be the most, still the most affected and understaffed department that we have. And I think, sadly, that they're now operating more like a fire department. On a daily basis, they go from emergency to emergency. They are not allowed the opportunity to get onto any kind of a maintenance programs or other improvement work that the city needs to have done. And I don't think that we're really providing the service to the citizens and the ratepayers that we should be. I hear a lot of stories about, well, a couple of guys came out and they put on a patch and they drove away because there was something else happening. And well, yeah, if there's a 12-inch water line blowing up on Placerville Drive or whatever, that needs to take priorities. So I think as a council, we need to look at trying to do something to restore some reasonable numbers of positions. And it's good that Dave is sitting down, because each one of those positions is about $88,000, as we learned through our workshops. And I would suggest that we look at doing more than a couple of basketballs, but we look at giving Steve the people that he really needs to hold the city together. And I don't ever expect or never hope to see another winter of 16, 17. Historic. Is still setting records, still driving people crazy. But what it brought out clearly to me is I spent night after night with these guys. There's anywhere from 5 to 6 people that are holding this town together at any given event, day to day. And those same guys went back to work after working all night. It's just not an acceptable way to operate anymore. And it seems like the very last group of folks that has suffered the longest since the big 08 recession. And so I would suggest, my suggestion is going to be that we look at bringing back 3 positions, one for roads, one for sewers, and one for water. Now, if we were to stage those out, given the amount of time that it would take to advertise, hire, interview, hire, we could be looking at the 3rd quarter for the first position. We could look at perhaps reviewing where our budget is. Hopefully Dave continues to get good sales tax numbers from the state. We could look at maybe hiring that 2nd position in January of 18, and then maybe look at continuing to follow our budget and see if it would be possible to add a 3rd position in the midterm budget review, which oddly, instead of happening in January, always seems to happen around April. But it works good, because then this would give a chance to see if we could have that 3rd position considered in there. Now, I realize that's a huge hit in money we really don't think we have, but we also have to look at the fact that the city is continuing to fall apart because we can't get to making any kind of standard repairs and the ongoing things. I mean, we seem to have a penchant, a real love for unfunded and deferred maintenance. And very recently, we've tried to add a few things where we're actually starting to set money aside and recognizing that these things do wear out. And pipes fail, trucks break, and so on and so forth. So that's the long and short of it. I would ask you to consider that, and I'd certainly be open to any discussion. One thing that I would like to follow up on is getting some sort of a presentation from Animal Control, given that their hit to our budget now is $204,000. There's 2 of our street people.
That's right.
Councilmember Acuna, may I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So when you're talking about adding perhaps 3 public works positions, under the alternate service levels, we have 2 listed here. Are you talking about adding a 3rd or 3 additional?
3 additional, or making the 1 part-time that's proposed on this year's budget full-time, and then 2 additional.
And then 2 additional.
And it's my understanding that we're reducing 1 and creating 1 so that we'll have a superintendent's position.
Right, going
so that I see that
part-time
kind of
to
as a
full-time,
wash.
so right. So adding 2 more to the mix of this.
Say between now and spring of 2018, or sooner if we can do it.
And can I add that in our initial ASLs that we discussed with you in the first workshop, I believe that's what we showed. We showed an additional sewer position, additional water position, and an additional streets position, which is essentially what you're talking about, I think, here, Councilmember. So that was included, and understanding that the water and sewer ones would be funded by water and sewer, and you see where those budgets are currently. You talk about the increase of sales tax. That could help with the streets position, which some of that can be and generally can be funded out. It would be funded out of general fund. The question is that I would caution you on and thinking about is whether or not you want to go into where you're funding water and sewer positions out of general fund. It can set some precedent and cause some problems for the future if we do that.
Because we have so many unknowns. We don't know what's coming in, right? I mean, how much, because like you were saying, we're getting a better forecast now on the sales tax revenue than we had before. And you know, we're still not sure what's going to be coming in, so things might be able to
Well, and
adjust
again,
it there.
again, I think that, you know, there's a good chance if things continue to improve, and, you know, maybe, and with SB1, that perhaps we
That's what I
can
was
do
trying to
that.
think,
That
SB1,
streets,
yeah.
that streets position.
yeah.
It's more the water sewer
Right.
positions. That
Right.
And we are doing a sewer rate study, which I think would be the appropriate place for that discussion, rather than just saying, let's go out and do this, because, you know, the only way aside from the city bringing in more money, which is possible, we tend to do the right thing in budgeting. We tend to underestimate our revenues and overestimate our costs. What typically I think happens is we get surprised on the revenue side because they tend to be higher because we tend to be somewhat conservative. What I think ends up happening on the cost side is, even though we're sort of overestimating our costs, there's always, like, at least in my 2.5, 3 years experience now, there's always something that sort of brings those costs, some unknown factor that brings your costs up with your estimates. You know, it doesn't seem like we tend to be low on the cost side when we do our final reviews and everything, though, for whatever reasons. For example, this year when it rained so much, that's whatever we might have calculated on cost got blown out the window because of all the rain. The only other place you can do it is you start to consciously start to reduce your margins. You don't carry as much of a rainy day fund, for lack of a better phrase. You say, well, rather than having whatever our reserve funds are, we'll take a couple $100,000 less and we'll fund these positions. And that is an ongoing thing. You're going to decide to do that every year. I'm not fundamentally opposed to that, but that would be quite a departure from our previous budgeting.
And I agree with you
yeah.
completely,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, but I think we're at a position now where we're far enough away from the big recession, but yet at the same time, we can see very clearly, at one time, Public Works had 14 people.
Sure.
And now they have 7. The amount of work and the impacts are enormous.
And we've grown our
The recent I guess the recent citation violation from the Water Quality Board regarding the gallons that we spilled, some of those conditions in there are going to require us to have our folks hitting some milestones, and if we miss them, I don't want to think about the fines could weigh filling one of these positions. If Steve would be able to maybe reorganize some of the existing people into water sewer positions, and maybe we make both of these street positions. Lord knows the streets are messed up. So give him the flexibility
Right.
to put these new positions where he would best put them to good use.
Right.
So not hire specific.
I would just say,
Well,
I would leave it certainly to Mr. Yule and
You're right.
On the sewer side, it's my impression that some of these things come with all sorts of certifications and whatnot that require you to hire specific individuals. Now, on the maintenance side, maybe not so much. I think it's a fine idea. One of the things that I was going to comment on was that one of the things that I mentioned during our workshops, and I'll mention it here now for folks, is how the budget is starting to represent an investment in the town. We're starting to invest back in the town. We're going to invest $4+ million in this CIP back into this town. We bumped up training because we need to invest in the human capital that is the city. It's important to make sure that the folks are well trained specifically, but also to show them that we value them and their professionalism and their professional development. This would be another step in that direction, but it would be a substantial one, because the other one was kind of nibbling around the corners, and we have the capital money now to actually spend on the city. But I'm not adverse to it, but I'd like to make it part of that rate process and kind of getting the numbers, and then you can go to the public and say, we have these issues, we are down people, this is what it means. And then whether you end up taking it from the rates, which would be substantial, or you say, okay, you make a conscious decision to fold it into the general fund, then I think then you'd be in a better place to make those kinds of decisions. And we are going to get a rate study here anytime soon. So it could be part of that, and actually it would hit your mid-year review thing.
That's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah.
That Mid-year
and
would
maybe we can just, if you'd like to, make a commitment.
But I think
to
what
that
Mark's
happen.
talking about is it takes so long.
Well, no,
You know,
I understand
just
that.
to even, you know,
If we were to, approve it, it wouldn't, you'd have to put the position out and advertise it.
How long?
Do the interviews, and then how so long is the probationary period for a person like that?
6 months, right? Or is it a year?
It's
1
a year.
1 year, yeah.
And the other point I want to look at is the realities of the budget as it floats along through the year. We could have a couple of people leave and go to better employment opportunities from our public works group. So there's vacancies now. Yes, we have a full position that Dave has diligently got on the books with no paycheck on it. So we, in the, going through the probationary period, the person might not work out. You never know. And it
Right.
takes so long in this day and age to do these things that I just see this as a time where we really need to recommit to getting public works back to a realistic staffing level.
Well, I was just going to say, my recommendation to you would be to direct staff, and Dave's probably going to throw something at me when I say this, but direct staff to expedite and move up as much as we can the rate study and get it going sooner than later. The second thing that we can do is, if you would like to authorize us to, we can create a list, start the recruitment now and create a list for those positions so that when you're ready to make that decision, then we're ready to, we've got somebody ready to go at that time,
I think
ready
that's
to
a good
hire.
idea.
So those are a couple of things that we can try and do.
Please be
And again,
prepared.
I'm seeing Dave staring me down. How are we going to? But I know that he's well aware. We've talked about it, that we need to have that, and we're prepared. First of the year, for July 1, we're going to start moving that rate study. We recognize that is a top priority that we need to get done. So those are a couple of things I would recommend we could consider as part of this.
I appreciate the dialogue tonight, and I agree with all the comments from my fellow council members. In thinking about this, I think we are very close to needing to adopt this budget, and we've gone through a lengthy process and enormous work by staff. Really appreciate everyone's collaboration on this budget. That I was going to suggest that perhaps we expedite the study. I like that idea. Certainly prioritize this. Have the council send strong direction to staff that that these positions are a priority to us moving forward, and perhaps it would make sense to adopt this budget with the positions as delineated in this, but prioritize this moving forward, wrapping it into our rate study and the mid-year budget review. And I did have a question, Cleve, on if we were to go out and recruit for these positions perhaps and have them ready to go, what is the likelihood, though, that when we're ready to pull the trigger, those people that we've identified are still available?
Well, and you need to work on your timing. I'm not saying that
Right.
we would go July 1. I would look at the timing of when we expect to adopt the new rates, and so that when the funding would potentially come
Okay.
into place, and we would start, a month or two before that, so that by the time we anticipate the funding coming in, we're ready to hire.
Okay, that makes sense. I just didn't want us to go out and recruit for something and have wasted staff time.
One of the things that we've discussed, Cleve and I have discussed, at least on the capital side. Now, this doesn't do the maintenance side is what I think what you're talking about on the maintenance side, but at least on the capital side, and it would help free up maybe on the maintenance side as well. Maybe bringing in some help that would not be full, staff employees, but rather some contract help to kind of provide maybe some relief to our crews. Still keep them busy, because the last thing you want to do is see a bunch of consultants and then you think but that would be a way for us to move some of this forward in the meantime, do some good thoughtful process around where the money's going to come from exactly. Because right now, without the rate study, without anything else, the money's just going to come out of the general fund, and it's going to come out of our margin. And so, that's the long and short of it. If that's what we want to do, that's fine. But what I'm saying is, if we might buy ourselves some time to think about where the money's going to come from exactly, and then present that to the community and say, we're going to do this thing. We need to do this. This is how we're going to do it. This is where the money's going to come from. This is why we're doing this, and whatnot. So.
I certainly appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody's comments and your concern over this matter, and recognizing that this needs to really this is the last big key that needs to be addressed. And it would be wonderful, we can expedite that study. That comes with certain risks too, with our rates already being where they are. That is not an easy guarantee at all. I would ask if we could maybe capture most of these ideas to give staff some direction for the future, but I would ask you to consider also, right now we have a new part-time position in Steve's Public Works Department. Is that correct, Steve?
No, I don't.
Wasn't there a... It was the line
What-
right up
what
above
it is,
the
that's for the senior streets maintenance worker. Right. It's not really part-time, it's just that it's only funded for half of the year because we anticipated when that money would come in would be about mid-year. So
Would it help, Steve, if we
it's
were
a
to make
full,
that
it's a full-time
full-time
position.
now? Or-
Anything will help, Steve.
Sure, if you
absolutely.
keep-
I'll take it.
Yeah, will you take a full-time employee? Okay.
Would that, we're so far behind. I don't.
So, yeah, that's something you could ask us to bring back on the 27th when we bring the budget back, and we would, basically what that would mean is that we would fund it through reserves for the first half of the year, anticipating that the SB1 funding would pick it up, when that funding comes in. But
I think that would.
That might be a happy medium
Yeah,
for
and
now.
then we can explore these other avenues to find out where we stand with the rates and so on.
Right. Cool.
Thank you.
All right. No, very well. Thank you. Anyone else?
I did have a couple of other questions
Go
on a
right
different
ahead.
topic. Okay. I guess my other question, Dave, is about the parking district. I am delighted to see that we are now putting $40,000 this next year into parking facilities repair, and that is long overdue. All of our parking lots and our parking structure have just suffered terribly from deferred maintenance. And I'm sorry to do this to you, but off the top of your head, do you know what our deferred maintenance is on our parking facilities? I'm sorry to ask this.
Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a list of about $400,000.
Okay.
That's
Capital
correct.
projects.
$400,000, okay. So
maintenance.
it's a drop in the bucket, but if it's a start in the right direction. And I think it's really important for folks to understand that, and that the new parking program is allowing us to at least, have 10% of that and put it back into our facilities. So, great, thank you for that figure. Let's see if I had any other questions. Let's see. I guess the other question is, at staff's convenience, and I'm probably looking at you, Regina, I would like once again to send a letter of recognition and thanks to our top 10 sales tax businesses. Would that be possible? Just a simple, basic letter, but expressing our gratitude and recognizing their position in helping us maintain and move our city forward with the mayor's signature.
Wow, that's
So, anyway,
I would maybe like to extend it to 20.
20. Yes, I think we did that last year too.
I think
The
so.
top 20. So
20.
at your convenience. Doesn't need to happen tomorrow. So that's
so much.
my comment for now. So thank you.
awesome idea.
Well, every time I see Ron Thompson, I say thank you.
So do I. I give him a hug too. Do you?
No,
Yeah, well.
I think it means more coming from you than me. Okay. Okay. Are we all?
I agree
Oh.
with everything that we've talked about, and I know that this was on the comments from the June 7th budget workshop, and we've all talked about how we really need to get that roof on the corporate yard. Yeah. And so I know you said you're considering it, so in the meantime, I guess buy some blue tarps.
It wouldn't be cool to hire a bunch of people and then have it rain on them when
Or
they
have
were
the whole
in
thing
the
cave
ready.
in.
Okay. Public. I'm now opening. Hold on, I have to do this formally.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is a public hearing.
Okay.
I am now opening the public hearing for testimony. Yeah, okay.
For testimony.
Please state your name. All that good stuff.
That was really good.
Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville, major H&L committee and ratepayer and taxpayer, all the rest of it. First, I'd like to congratulate Dave Warren and all the city staff for doing the almost impossible to balance Placerville's budget. It shows a lot of very hard decision-making. And so I'd like to say thank you all. I do have 3 items of concern in Placerville's proposed budget. First one is training for the GIS software and engineering is essential for the analysis needed to fix Placerville's water, sewer, and roads. I have worked with this software for several years, and I know from experience that ongoing training is just absolutely necessary. The second one is fixing the roof at the corporation yard should not wait until mid-year. The weather then is likely to make roof repairs much more difficult and therefore more expensive, not to mention that the longer we wait, the more degradation will occur and the more costs will increase. The third one is fixing the concrete patio at the Goldbug Park, I think is a public safety issue and should just be done. It will not get less expensive the longer we wait, and if someone gets hurt, the city's liability would be another expense, especially when they sue us for negligence as well as damages. Another item for the council's consideration that directly affects the CIP budget for the extensive storm cause repairs to the water treatment plant proposed for Measure H funding is that if the city enforces its code for private sewer systems that connect to the city system, it would accomplish several objectives. One, it would reduce 70% of the repair calls and associated costs that now go to fix private pipes. It would reduce the current inflow and infiltration problems by providing increased integrity of the system feeding into our sewer plant. And it would reduce the potential for damage to the treatment plant and expenses for repairs caused by last winter's storms. And while they're calling them historic events, the thing you have to realize is that's only based on statistics. And it's like trying to predict an earthquake. You may say that at 120 years, it may not happen for another 120 years. It could happen next year. It could happen the second year. It could happen in 5 years. So it's just statistically, it wouldn't happen for another 120 years, but that doesn't really mean anything, especially not when you're trying to prevent damage. It would fit into the code enforcement emphasis for human health and safety as well as environmental protection to enforce those city codes. And it would also reduce potential water quality board fines. And my last comment is, thanks for patching that awful pothole at the post office.
Oh, they did that. Nice. They got the right one. They got the right one this time. The right one. Way to go. Any other public comment? You're here.
My name is Cynthia Adamson. I moved to your lovely community 8 months ago.
Welcome to Placerville.
Thank you. I love it up here. It's a wonderful city, and I think you have an incredibly active and vibrant downtown, which I think is part of the reason that people pull off of Highway 50 to come and see it. So this is in, I didn't prepare notes because and I'm sure that more of this is questions, but $6,000 to spend on training for sales tax software. Why the heck didn't you negotiate the training as part of when you bought the software? Most people would. That one is a question to me. $3,800 for basketballs. Well, how many basketballs does that buy? And you said something about these coaches start when their kids are little. Well, who tracks the inventory and gets the basketballs back from them? Do you do that? Let's see, other questions. $10,000 for economic software and consulting for business attraction and retention. Yet your parking went up 100% in cost per hour, added 2 hours per day, added another day to it. All of those things are incrementally, incredibly huge jumps. And I'm sure you had all those workshops, etc. I'm not quite sure how Measure H plays into downtown parking. Obviously, it's clear that your top sales tax revenue is from businesses that are not downtown, but your vibrant downtown wouldn't be so vibrant if nobody wants to come because they can't park. You have individual people walking around writing down license plate numbers is the way you track where people have parked. That's the most archaic thing I've ever seen. So apparently you've bought this whole new software system parking thing, but what if someone parks, I go to Centro, I get a cup of coffee, they write down my license plate. I go away, back to my house, I come back down because I want to go to Placerville Hardware. I just happen to park in the same place or near it. And somebody says, oh, that's the same license plate number. You've been here for more than 2 hours. That's ridiculous. There's no logic there's no intelligent, technological way that makes any sense to me. So I probably have pissed you off enough already, but someone said, how do we recruit for positions? Public sector, you can't recruit, right? You can't recruit for positions. And I don't understand why you're spending money on Broadway to do bike lanes and sidewalks for transient people. Anyway, that's all my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
I love this town though.
Well, that's nice. Thank you very much. Okay. Are there any other public comment? No. Okay. All right. We will close the public hearing. Yes, sir.
I was just going to answer a couple of the questions, just
Okay.
to clarify. For example, the $6,000 for the sales tax software, that's actually for the software, not
That
for the
is the
training.
software.
That's for the actual software, the $6,000. No,
No.
it's for the actual software. Dave will,
That's correct.
Dave will figure out how to use it. They'll provide training with it when he gets it, if there's any that's needed. So,
Yes.
Where did the basketballs go?
Dave,
Into
or Steve, you'll have to answer the basketball question. I'm sorry.
That adjustment is budget neutral, and it's at the request of our volunteer coaches. So those costs associated with that purchase is passed along to the participants who are in favor of us switching that program around, as opposed to trying to store enough basketballs for over 700 children in the program.
Hold on. We're just explaining now. If you'd like, oh, by the way, I'm sorry. If you would like to engage Mr. Yule further on this subject, you can come back and ask him, you can make an appointment and talk to him more about this. Okay.
I'd be happy
Answers-
to.
More questions and more answers, I guess.
Dave, was there anything else that most of the rest was comments about? I understand, and maybe I'll try to clarify, I guess, with the parking program, yes, you're allowed 2 hours, and if your license plate is logged in when you come downtown, your 2 hours starts when that happens. I'm not sure that there's another way to do that. Other than, you could argue, well, every time you come down, do I log it in again? You're right. It is a nightmare the way our program is because of the 2 hours free parking. That's what causes us to have this problem. But believe me, in our parking committee meetings, trying to take away that 2 hours of free parking was an even bigger problem for the merchants.
The reason it doesn't happen in like a city is because the minute you park, you pay.
Right.
And if you move and go, say you go to Union Square, you pay. You leave Union Square and you go to, I don't know, someplace else. And then you come back to Union Square, you pay. So there's no 2 free hours parking, and that's what kind of muddles the thing. The easiest way to do that, I think you're absolutely right, is you just go back in, you queue in, and I don't know if you get 2 hours again or not.
You do not.
No.
Once you've queued in, it's 2 hours per day.
That's what it
So
is.
once you're either logged in by the enforcement officer, or
Right.
you log in by putting your license plate in the machine.
Right. That's it.
That starts.
But it's the 2 hours free
after
parking.
that. If you come back down anytime
Yeah.
during the day after that,
Yeah.
you would have to pay for parking.
Right. Yeah, that's
Unless-
a 2 hour free
There are a
parking.
couple of options.
Yes.
There are some 15-minute, some 20-minute
Yeah.
spaces. If you can park in those go throughout the day, so
Right.
those would not.
And if you went out onto Main Street and you just observed the 2 hour parking, then you're fine because.
Well, but even then.
That's true.
If the enforcement officer logs your license plate
Right,
in
right.
while you're there the first time, that starts your 2 hours for the day.
Okay.
So.
All right. Anything else? Okay. Anything else? All right. Any more questions, comments?
No more questions, and no more questions. But I do want to have the public, if anyone's watching out there, to make a note that we have almost $3.5 million in projects that we are applying to our roads and our sewer system, our decrepit roads and sewer system, because of Measures H&L. And I really want to thank our community for supporting that. And I love your idea that we are, starting to really invest in our city as is desperately needed. So thank you to the community for supporting that.
Thank you. Okay. So we're closing the public hearing, and you'll come back with a new one. We don't take action. Well, do we take? No, we're not taking any action. We had a public hearing. 2 weeks, we'll come back with some revisions and revisals and stuff. Okay.
Are you okay? You okay, Dave? With what you have the direction you need?
I have the direction I need.
Dave, are you okay?
What?
I have the direction.
You,
you have what you need. Okay.
Thank you very much.
He's not even close to okay, but he's okay. Let's see here. Okay, 11.2, another public hearing. Adopt a resolution approving the engineer's report attached hereto and referenced herein, confirming the assessments of the diagrams as described in full detail in the reports on file with the city clerk. And if you didn't know any better, this is Cottonwood and Orchard Park? Orchard Hill. And we'll just go from there. Okay. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is a routine item. It's part 2 of a 2-part series. Part 1 occurred at your meeting held on May 9th when the council adopted a resolution declaring its intention to provide the annual levy and collection of assessments for the city council landscaping, lighting, and maintenance districts as required by the state's Streets and Highways Code. Part 2 requires the council to hold a public hearing, which is scheduled for tonight, and adopt a resolution approving the 2 engineers' reports in your agenda packet. The city currently has 2 LLMDs districts, Orchard Hill and Cottonwood Park, as mentioned earlier. The engineers' reports for both districts present status quo budgets and levy amounts. The current levy amounts, both districts, are adequate in covering basic costs for operating and maintaining the districts for fiscal year 17-18. And tonight we respectfully request the council to approve the 17-18 LLMD assessments by adopting the resolution as presented.
Okay. Can I make this comment?
Sure.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments? I have one comment / question / comment. It's more of a comment than a question. Okay. I noticed in both of these that there is no kind of an accelerator, and yes, you're for the record, Dave's nodded up and
He's
down.
already,
And we've talked about that, and we definitely, I think, at some point are going to need to go to both of those communities with the proposal to do an accelerator to get that in there so that we can, they're going to have these parks, and they're going to suffer from what the rest of the parks in town suffer from, and that is not enough capital money for maintenance, for capital improvements, and the nice little park in their community is going to suffer because of that. So we'll make our case and everything else, and I just wanted to put that out there that we should probably think about doing that as soon as feasible.
I think
Sooner rather than later.
And I'd like to piggyback your comments,
Go
Mr.
right
Mayor.
ahead.
I did some calculations, and tell me if I'm wrong here, Dave, but in Cottonwood, these rates were established in 1997?
Right.
That's correct.
Okay. And doing an inflator calculator, inflation since 1997 has been 48.91%. I mean, that's huge, almost 50%. And so that's cutting into our costs. So it only makes sense that these assessments reflect the true cost of maintaining that district. And so I definitely would like, at our earliest convenience, to come back and do public hearings and go through the process on both Cottonwood and Orchard Hill so we can have those costs be reflected in the assessments. So.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, my comments reflect yours, and my only concern is the time and expense to go through it, but it certainly needs to happen because both of these parks are, their users are the neighbors, so those folks in these districts.
Okay. All right, I am going to open the public hearing for testimony. Okay, I am going to close the public hearing. Bring it back here. We do actually have to adopt this resolution, do we? Yes. Okay. So do we have a motion?
I also move
Second.
approval for 11.2.
Okay. Let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarucci?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Do we need a second motion to direct staff to begin the process to look at revising,
Oh.
going through that whole that's a process.
It
yes,
is.
it is. Do we need to do that?
Mr. Moore?
Or can we just put that on their radar?
I made note of it.
He made a note.
Okay, great.
Okay, cool.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
12.3. Oh wait, 12.1. Oh, I see. I was trying to get us out of here. 12.1. We're down to, let's see here, approving a freeway maintenance agreement with the Department of Transportation, Caltrans, for construction of the Western Placerville Interchanges Phase 2 project, and approve a utility agreement with PG&E, AT&T, EID for relocation of facilities resulting from construction of the Western Placerville Interchange Phase 2 project. Mr. I always do this.
You do.
Mr. Rivas.
Thank you for acknowledging Director Rivas. And
It says it.
It says Rebecca.
It gets better.
As we all know, we are pressing ahead at a steamrolling pace to get Western Placerville Interchange Phase 2 project under construction in order to obtain right-of-way certification, which allows us to have an encroachment permit and thus get federal or the state and federal fund appropriated to the project for construction. We need to have these utility agreements for various locations within the project. As such, this staff report and the recommended resolution approves several items. One is the freeway maintenance agreement with Department of Transportation for the improvements that are located within the state right-of-way. The others are the utility agreements between PG&E, AT&T, EID for relocation of their facilities. Both of these items will allow us to get the encroachment permit and the right-of-way certification to get the construction funding. These items are being prepared for a packet to be proposed to Caltrans on Monday the 19th, and we are on schedule to meet the CTC meeting agenda in August.
Cool.
As such, staff is recommending adopting a resolution approving freeway maintenance agreement with Caltrans for the construction of the Western Placerville Interchanges Phase 2 project, approving various utility agreements with PG&E, AT&T, and EID for relocation of the facilities resulting from the construction of the project, and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the same. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions about this item?
Now, these are standard agreements.
What? Wow.
From me.
You know, anyway, okay. You have no questions, no comments? Nope. Would the public like to comment on this? This is what happens when you hang around.
We're glad you're here.
Wow. Okay. I'll bring it back here. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Do we need to call a roll, or is this just it's not?
Sure, why
It's a
not?
concept-y thing. Okay. What's that? Please call the roll.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarucci?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. $12.2, adopt a resolution approving contract change order CCO number 12 in the total amount of $22,556.90 with Doug Veerkamp General Engineering for the Party Way Big Cut Road, Sacramento Street area waterline replacement project, waterline replacement on Chamberlain Street and Sacramento Streets. Okay, and then I'm not going to read the rest of it. And since Ms. Neves, would you like to go?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We have completed construction on the Party Waterline project, and this was a contract change order that addressed some changes that had to occur in the field that were different than designed for Party Way specifically. And the amendment to REY's contract covers the construction management services tied to that efforts. And with that, we are additionally requesting a budget appropriation in the amount of $40,000 to cover those costs from the Water Enterprise Fund contingency for unforeseen expenditures. We are bringing a contract closeout item which will balance and even get in some contract deductions on the project in a couple of weeks or a month, depending upon when we can close out final CCOs on the project. But we are in the final paperwork completion portion of that project. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
Comment, Mr. Mayor? Yes. First of all, congratulations on the closeout of this very difficult, very important project. I know it was a very difficult one. So
It was a team effort amongst all city staff.
Well, it was. And I want to thank Vercamp Engineering. I know he was just a real partner in this project and couldn't have done it without his firm working with us every step of the way, and really appreciate his diligent efforts. And I also want to highlight once again that we received $1.6 million in grant funding because Measure H provided the matching funds. And so once again, that is another success story for our community. So this is just exciting to see this coming to a close.
And we paved the road.
Yes, I was going
Which
to
was
mention that.
very, very exciting.
We went
Have
way
we
beyond.
received any kudos from any of those folks up there when they drive over it? Does anybody call us?
We receive a variety of feedback. Prior to the paving, it was a more colorful variety.
Yes.
And after the paving, it was a more supportive variety, and
Okay.
we appreciate the supportive comments, and we, of course, just absorb the colorful comments.
Well, thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
I just
Comments?
want to ditto what
Yeah.
Councilmember Wendy said. You guys went through so much, and I really am surprised. I know in some people's eyes it took a long time, but for all you went through, I think you really did a phenomenal job in,
Thank you.
Getting it done.
It was a team effort, for sure.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
You see, you give us money, we deliver projects. That's going to be our new phrase right after a great past and a wonderful future. Money, projects. Okay.
Good stuff.
Would anybody from the public like to comment on this again? Okay. Seeing the chuckle, we'll bring it back here.
I'll be happy to move item 12.2.
Okay.
Move for approval.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Since this has money, let's call a roll.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Fantastic.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much to our staff.
Okay.
And our contractors for all their
Yes,
hard work.
everything. You know, one of the things too, now not every project is going to have a local contractor, but this is spending millions of dollars on a local contractor, local jobs. This is like, this is like a real big giant shot in the arm for folks around here. Operators, laborers, folks who work in the office, the contractor himself. I mean, this is a really big deal.
And fortunately, Doug's been the successful bidder on several.
Well, that's the only way he gets the jobs. He has to be the successful bidder.
I know, but I'm saying,
And-
so we have he's gotten a lot of, yes.
Well, there's that successful bidding process.
Well, yes. Well, no, we don't want to make it sound, because if we said something else, we'd make it sound like we just hand these things out like candy. And these are competitive bids, folks.
Duh.
Competitive bids.
That's right.
But he does work with the community very well, and he brings a lot of value. And of course, our tremendous staff also on the other side of that equation. So,
And he's very generous with his contributions to our community, pumps them back in too, so that's always a lovely
Okay.
thing.
All right. 12.3. Designate me to be the city's voting delegate for the League of California Cities Annual Conference, and Vice Mayor Thomas as the alternate delegate, and direct staff to complete the voting delegate form and forward to the League of California Cities prior to the July 31st deadline.
You going to give your own staff report?
You know, it says my name on there, but I've learned that doesn't really mean anything. So,
Do you promise to go?
I thank you.
Oh,
I
does
can
Regina
read.
get to? Oh, pardon me.
Okay, this is the deal. We're going to the League. I think we're all actually going to go to the League of
We are.
California Cities thing because it's in Sacramento this year. It's in September, and we need a voting delegate. And that's if y'all agree. Although after this evening you may decide not to. That I will be doing that.
We have full faith in you.
Okay. Do you have any more questions or comments to make about this thing?
Well, knowing that Wendy's your alternate,
He's got good backup.
I have
I'll
an
tell you,
extra level of
it's-
comfort. with
you know,
this
quite
whole deal.
honestly, it's the only way I'm voting for it. Okay. Would the public like to comment? No. Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval for item 12.3.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you so much for the responsibility.
Go forth and vote.
And vote. Okay. That gets past the fun
10
part.
minutes after 8, we got to slow down for Cleve now.
No, we're not. We're running right through this thing.
I have several issues I need to bring.
Council. That would just be funny. Council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado Transit Authority.
Yes, significant.
Raj, but be brief.
God, everybody's telling me what to do.
So it's not new.
Okay, what we did, we approved the Cameron Park route changes with expansion of service to El Dorado Hills. It's quite a nice thing that they, and they worked on this for a long time, and providing those folks down the hill some.
Did they get a lot of community buy-in to this?
Yes, they did. And then also, Transit is once again went to bat for us, and we are going to have free county fair shuttle. And they're going to have, it's free parking and shuttle bus from 2 area locations to the fairgrounds, Walmart, Park and Ride, and it'll take you right to the green gate at the fairgrounds.
Awesome. Good.
Thank you.
El Dorado County Transportation Commission.
Yes, well, thank you. Couple of things, and I'm sure our staff is aware of this, but I will quickly go through it anyway. SB1, there was a workshop this week, and our executive director attended that, and the state will begin collecting revenue in November 2017. So just because the state passed a transportation bill, don't want folks to think that the money's going to start rolling in immediately. The CTC is in the process of developing guidelines for how SB1 will be implemented. In addition to that, SB1 is, as we know, just dedicated to roadway maintenance and rehabilitation, no new roads. Cities will need to submit a list of projects to the CTC and report, and it will also need to be include performance measures as projects get rolled out. They want to see, are we using the funds as we said we were going to do that, which accountability. That list will be due in the fall of 2017 to the CTC. In addition, the Active Transportation Program, they have added $100 million to the Active Transportation program, which is a huge sum of money throughout California. And that's for walking and biking projects with a 10% rural set aside. And applications for projects are due August 1st. And I know on our hit list is the Upper Broadway bike lanes and the El Dorado Trail, Missouri to El Dorado. So.
Okay. LAFCO.
We haven't met.
Okay.
Nothing
to report on SACOG.
Oh, that's better. Nothing to report.
SEDCOR is no more.
Alliteration.
As of last week.
Should Regina take it off?
So, yeah, right. There's going to be no more reports. The organization that's taking it over, though, I will be in contact with them, and then I will bring back to what part we can.
Cool.
All right. 2 by 2.
No.
Okay. Requests for future agenda items.
I have 2, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
One would be a current cost estimate from all of the expenses that the city has incurred from the great winter of 16-17. And the second one, I kind of mentioned earlier, and that would be a presentation from Animal Control to see what our $204,000 is being provided, and also seriously to find out where our citizens are, when and why our citizens should contact Animal Control,
Yes.
so they know,
Sort of a primer.
Take that away from our public works folks. Some of those
Okay,
tasks.
cool.
Thank you.
Any others? Okay. Hazardous tree removal plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you may recall, on March 14th, City Council took the first step in an application process by approving a resolution that enabled the city to seek state funding in order to immediately and effectively address tree mortality throughout the city. I'm happy to report tonight that the California Office of Emergency Services has approved the city's tree mortality removal plan, and the city's funding application is in process. We hope to have the hazard tree removal begin soon after this year's operating budget is approved at our next meeting. The state will be funding 75% of the costs associated with the project. Our first field observation made by city staff places the number of trees that need removing to date at approximately 100 trees. So we're going to get going on it real soon.
Question? Steve, does that include the trees at Goldbug Park?
Yes.
Or are those not?
Yes, it does. That's where we plan to start.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay.
Congratulations on
Yeah,
getting that.
that's a big
That's
deal.
wonderful.
Look forward to
It's
hearing more on that.
important project.
Okay. Upcoming items. Items tentatively scheduled for the next regularly scheduled City Council meeting of June 27, 2017 include consider the cancellation of the regularly scheduled council meeting of July 25th.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
That'll probably go through relatively quickly. Adoption. It's funny how we just assume that in July everything sort of just stops.
Everybody cancels their meetings.
That's true. Oh, yeah, I know. Adoption of 2017-2018 fiscal year operating and capital improvement budget. Party big cut, Sacramento Street water line closeout, Blair's Lane Bridge contract change orders, resolution of intent, zoning code amendments to address vacation rentals. Ooh,
Thank you, Mr.
that could be very exciting. Okay. And that's it. Cleve, go to Puerto Rico.
Bon voyage.
Thank you.